Hey, what's up, guys? Hopefully this is Blake from Brinks Trades coming to you live with a market chart breakdown. So I just want to apologize. Had some technical difficulties with the stream this morning, and hopefully this had some technical difficulties with the stream this morning, and hopefully this oops, there you go. Hopefully this helps a lot. Yep. So I had some technical difficulties this morning and apologize. And hopefully we can go ahead and break this down into a little bit better analysis. So again, my name is Brinks Trades, and so I basically cover the indices for US30, US500, and US100. And so what I want to do is just kind of break all of these down into a little bit better understanding for you guys coming into next week. And so let me go ahead and go back to my screen. And so if we look at the U.S. dollar um, uh, coming into last week, what I wanted to see here is a bullish bias, a continued bullish bias, right? And so coming into last week, if we look at the weekly time frame, we made notes of a couple of different things. And so the first thing is going to be this consequent encroachment level, which is our 50% level of a wick. And so looking at dollar index, the note that I had made last week is that if price broke above this consequent encroachment level, then we were most likely going to see a continued price run into this fair value gap. And if we take a look at the monthly time frame and look at the imbalance and the fair value gap, up until the month of October, we had traded into this fair value gap on the monthly time frame, and then price ultimately rejected it, which is what we've been seeing for the past few months, and trading into another imbalance, another buy side inefficiency, sell side imbalance at this range, which begins at 105.12 on the monthly time frame. And so we've been trading into this range pretty much the entirety of this month. So pretty much this entire week to start the week off. So the question we got to ask ourselves here is this a sustained run, or is this something that's going to continue on and or a reverse, back up? And ultimately, what I'm looking for is, if we go down to the weekly time frame, again, there's a couple levels here that I wanted to see the price get hit. And so the first one is going to be this consequent encroachment level. Again, like I said, now consequent encroachment is just going to be the 50% level of any wick. And so that's going to be separating the 50% or the premium or the discount range of any wick. And so up until this week, like I said, we've had a failure to break through this level. And if we go to the daily time frame here, we can see that we did break above it really quickly, but then ultimately rejected and took out the lows on the sell side that was sitting between these lows. And so I made the note that if we did not get a break above it, we might see more of a deeper pullback or ultimate trend reversal. And so if we go back to the weekly time frame, we can see that um, price is ultimately giving us that deeper pullback that we wanted to see. And so ultimately, since we are getting deeper pullback, we have to kind of ask ourselves, where is price running to? Where are some levels that we think the price might, either A, reverse and continue back up with this uptrend that we think might happen, or B, where targets to aim to if we're going to take positions this week. And so ultimately, the area that I'm looking for is 10 is it begins at 104.17 and runs to 104.01. And this is just a volume imbalance right here. And so all volume balance is just kind of a gap between the opening and the closing price, or the closing price of one candle to the opening price of another. And so you can see that imbalance exists right there. And so uh ultimately, we want to see price run to this level, and that's what I'll be targeting for this week. If we look at the daily time frame, again, we created this huge imbalance coming into the Friday's trading session. And so what I want to see here, the question that I'm going to be asking myself is this a grab of sell side liquidity here to continue to run things up higher, or is our target for our volume imbalance? And so if we go down to the 4-hour time frame, there is a huge sell side inefficiency or sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency here that begins at 104.98 that I believe that I want to see price trade into going into next week. So ultimately, I want to see price start up the week by giving us a higher price, trading into this fair value gap here, and then ultimately targeting the sell side here. Now, once we hit this level, this will kind of be like a decision in the market as to whether um, we are continuing this sustained run on a downtrend and seeking lower prices, or are we going to continue to go back up? And so ultimately, everything that I call out for this week, or everything that I'm calling attention to this week, they're going to be very short-term targets because I'm not 100% sure where we're going to go. And so when you're looking for that, you want to make sure that you're kind of being very short term with your targets and not trying to project big plays or big moves. And so another reason for that is because last week I talked about this, is that we hit our quarterly objectives, right? And so our quarterly objective on our indices was met, and our quarterly objective for our um, forex pairs, which I don't do the analysis on here, but just quarterly everything was pretty much met. And so um, whenever that happens, you have to take a step back and let the market kind of give you a new direction in which it wants to go. Does it want to continue with that? Does it not? And so a lot of my analysis comes with a lot of waiting and a lot of, sitting back to see what price is going to do. Right. And so if we look at the, uh, oops, if we look at dollar index as a whole, ultimately, I'm going to be holding a bearish bias on dollar index for this week. It's going to be a short-term bearish bias because ultimately I want to see price pull back and then attack these volume balances that are sitting there. And so we'll know kind of by the end of this week where we're at, if this was just a grab of liquidity or if this is, the start of a deeper reversal or a deeper retrace back down into these imbalances that I've called out here. So that's dollar index. So ultimately for the week, I want to see a bearish bias. I want to see price pull back and then give us a retest these lows. And we'll know very quickly if we are going to continue on with that bullish bias instead. So again, let's break it down to NAS100. And so with NAS100, what I'm really looking for this week is a couple of things. And so again, like I called out, coming into last week, if we look at the last week here, I made the note that we had met our quarterly objective. Our quarterly objective on the weekly time frame was trading back into this huge imbalance here that begins at the 14,228 level and runs all the way down to the 14,000 or 3,379 level. And so coming into last week, what I wanted to see happen in an ideal situation, because we don't pick the tops or bottoms of the trend, I wanted to see price continue back into this fair value gap right here, which is on the daily time frame, and then give us an opportunity to go short at least to the low of this, right? So I was very hesitant to call lower prices because this is our quarterly objective. This is what we've mapped out for the last 3 to 6 months. And so usually every 3 to 6 months in the market, you'll tend to get some type of break of structure on the higher time frames, which causes to a trend change essentially, right? And so because we had hit this target, I was very hesitant to call deeper prices, but I thought we could get a retest of this low. And so what we ended up actually getting, coming into last week, was just price rejecting from this imbalance and continue to go higher, boom, and to the tune of a crazy amount of movements, like over 100 or over 1,000 points in like the last 2 days. So the question we have to ask ourselves here right now is this going to be a sustained run, or is this going to be a just a pullback to continue on to go down with this deeper trend? And so looking very shortly, again, just like the dollar index, the targets that I'm going to call out for this week are going to be very short term. And so let's get rid of this and do this. So ultimately, I'd like to see price pull back into this range here, which I'll denote on the 4-hour time frame in a second, and then attack the buy side liquidity sitting here, and then as high as 14,353. But looking at the range more specifically at 15,234. The reason for that is a couple of things, right? So we grabbed liquidity, we broke our structure here, And so this very much represents a balanced price range, right? Each one of these fair value gaps has had sell side and buy side fill it, sell side and buy side fill it. And so I don't think the market needs to go down there as of yet. Now, again, do I know if this is going to be a continued sustained long run? I don't know, right? I don't think anybody knows. But what we can do is look for short term targets while we kind of build out the next idea, right? And so the what I'm looking for, if we go to the 4-hour time frame on US100, is going to be this fair value gap, which begins at 15,079 and runs to 14,979. And the first one, the next one's going to be 14,941 and runs to 14,905. And so um, I want to see price trade back into this range and really attack the buy side at this level, and then this top level, which is going to be that 15,350 level that I called out on the daily. So those two levels are going to be where I'm going to be looking to target for this week. So again, price to trade into this, either this fair value gap or this fair value gap at the deepest, and then look to attack buy side, right? And so that'll be what I'm looking for on NASDAQ. So really just, a 300 point kind of like difference between a potential entry and a potential target for the week. If we go back up to the daily time frame, again, like I said, looking to attack the buy side liquidity that's sitting above this high. That's my target for this week. So we'll know pretty quickly if this is kind of a pullback on the trend or the beginning of that new quarterly shift where we start moving back up into an uptrend. The one thing that I do want to call out too is that with the style that I trade, which is very much smart money concept driven, we talk about the idea of trend lines that happen all of the time in the markets. And so the way that we see trend lines is not necessarily the way that everybody else sees trend lines, right? So you're going to look at these trend lines. Most people would look at these as an opportunity to buy and sell off of, right? What I'm looking at is the liquidity sitting above these highs, right? And so each one of these highs has buy side liquidity sitting above it, right? And so oops. All right. Boom. And boom. So again, buy side liquidity sitting above these highs. And so I know the market's eventually going to want to attack these. Whether that happens now on this run right now or eventually, I think the market is just building liquidity up to get taken at a different point. And so that's something that I'm noting in the back of my head as we kind of look at this analysis. And so if we do get sustained prices, then I think that we will go ahead and attack the buy side liquidity sitting above those. But in the short term, this is kind of the high that I'm looking at. I want to see price attack this high. First, again, 15,239 and then 15,346, right? And so that's what I'm looking for NAS100. And so whenever I kind of make my outlines or my outlooks for the week, especially with our indice pairs, anytime there's a sustained run on any of my indices, I tend to have one pair that tends to be my leader, quote unquote, and then the other pairs that tend to follow along with it or the followers. And so for this sustained run, the leader that I was looking at is the S&P. And so the reason for that is just is giving a lot of clean price action. It's very direct. It's very clear to see where price has been going on the S&P and the Dow Jones. Now, with that being said, I only personally trade NASDAQ. And so I only, personally will take setups on NASDAQ. It's just the pair that I trade. But, looking at, the dollar index to kind of give you an over idea of where dollar is going because it's the king, right? And then looking at, the other correlating pairs in US500 and US30, you can kind of build an idea of where price is going to go. If we're going to be bearish on dollar, we should be bullish on indices altogether. So that's why I always do that analysis first. And then with the S&P, you should, it should be following along. And so again, for this sustained run, the last so many months, S&P has been my leader because it's given me a lot of really, really good intel as far as like where I think the market's going to go. And so coming into last week on the S&P, I'm just going to draw this out really quickly. Get rid of this. Um, so coming into last week, there was a couple levels that I wanted to see hit, and so we had this huge candle that basically took out sell side sitting at this low, just tapped it, right? So I wanted to see a sustained run back into this daily fair value gap, which I'll show when we go to the daily time frame. And I wanted to see price do something like this, right? And attack the volume imbalance sitting here and the relative equal lows right there. I thought those were pretty clean targets. And so what we ended up actually getting though is something obviously very different. The last 2 days in the market really just kind of went crazy bullish, right? And so we traded back into this range. Now I'm going to get rid of this weekly fair value gap because I don't think we need it anymore, especially since we filled this imbalance and this fair value gap with both sell side and buy side. So I don't think it's necessarily needed to be on our charts anymore. Same thing with this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. So if we zoom in on this last week's price action, right, we can see a couple of things. Again, one thing that I'm always looking for when I trade is the idea of consequent encroachment. And so again, that's in your fair value gaps, your mean thresholds, your your fair value gaps, your gaps, or your wicks on candles is basically your idea that the market is going to go up to 50% level and respect the 50% level. And so if you look in and zoom in very closely at this price action, even though we had this huge bullish movement, we traded back up to the consequent encroachment of this wick. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to label this consequent encroachment for you guys. So consequent encroachment sitting there, right at this 50% level. That level is the 4,390 mark on the E-mini S&P. And so I also mark this up on the US500 just for the people that trade primarily forex. They can see that as well. But yeah, so this 50% level is here. And so what I want to see here is I'm going to be looking to see if we dig deeper into this fair value gap coming to start the week off. If we zoom out, you can kind of see it a little bit better. And so what I'm going to be looking to see is if we dig deeper into this fair value gap to start the week off, or are we going to turn around and tap this gap again and then continue to go lower? And so there's a couple levels that I'm marking out, obviously the consequent encroachment level, but then I'm also looking at the buy side liquidity that's sitting over these relative equal highs right here. And so these relative equal highs, if we go down to the daily time frame, they're very, very, very apparent, right? And there's a couple of liquidity markers here that I want to point out as well. So 4,000, these highs begin at 4,226. Ideally, since we are in pretty much a balanced price range, I want to see price continue to go up and retest these areas here at these levels. And then ultimately my eyes kind of drawn to this fair value gap that's sitting right here. And so I tell students in my mentorship all the time that if you see, relative equal highs or sitting right above a fair value gap, right below a fair value gap, there's a really good opportunity for price to not only take out this level, but also trade into this level as well. And so that's what I want to see here too, right? So for the E-mini S&P, I want to see, oops, where's it at? There we go. I want to see price start the week off by giving us a trade lower, maybe into this imbalance here, or I'll narrow this down to the 4-hour time frame, and then look to retest price at that 4,427 level, and then 4,453 level. Right. So if we go down to the 4-hour time frame, there is another imbalance there, right here, a city right there. And so if I make this visible on the 4-hour, right, boom. I want to see price really start off by giving us a trade back into this range and then looking to attack this high first and then ultimately the fair value gap if we get enough momentum. And so that, again, those highs are 4,426 and the fair value gap begins at 4,443 to 4,463. So very clean. I just want to see price retest, take the buy side liquidity that's sitting over these highs at this level and then ultimately trade into this. And so I'm going to be pretty bearish on the US 500, S&P. Sorry, bullish on the S&P. And then again, for the people that trade strictly US 500, this is very similar, right? So if we go back to the weekly time frame, again, it's the same pretty much pair, just the numbers are slightly different. So I want to make sure everybody has that. So again, the constant encroachment at this level is this wick right here. It's, oops, right there, which represents the 50% of that wick level. Again, I'm targeting the buy side liquidity that's sitting over these highs. That's also sitting inside of this weekly fair value gap that we had traded into previously. So all of that sits right there. I'm going to delete that so you can see this a little better. But again, daily time frame, we can see that this fair value gap is sitting right here. Right. And so ultimately, I want to see price trade back into this range and then attack these highs. And the highs are a little bit different on US 500, but it's the same overall pair chart. And so those highs are really close. They begin at 4,404. Actually, let's just call it 4,400 on the dot. And then the fair value gap is obviously slightly above that. So this is going to be my target for the week. I want to see price trade into these range. So looking for a pullback. And that pullback begins on this is what I wanted to see happen last week. That pullback begins at the 4,331 level and then obviously runs to that zone there as well. So again, very bullish, not very bullish, but it's short-term bullish on US 500. Again, I need more information from the market to kind of decide where we're going to be at for the longer term trend. So right now I'm just kind of calling out very easy opportunities in very clear directional bias and where I think the market's going to go. So again, US 500 bullish, NASDAQ is bullish so far. Let's see if it lines up with US30 as well. So as we move to US30, now I want to take a pause and see if there's any comments. So someone's asking right now if Daniel's saying you're giving away too much sauce. I think this is Daniel in my mentorship. You're right, Daniel. I'm not gonna give away everything, man. I'm gonna hold some of this stuff back. But ICT is it's very, I use a lot of different styles when it comes to trading. Always Rise kind of commented on this. I use a lot of different things. But ICT concepts, smart money concepts, they're kind of one thing that I use. I've had a lot of different mentors. I've talked about this a million times, and I will always give credit to a lot of people that helped me in the past. I've had a lot of different mentors that have helped me throughout, my trading career. And I've been trading for a little over 10 years. I know I didn't do like my background, I guess, today, but yeah, I've had over 10 years of trading experience. And so I've been doing this for a while. And so there's been a lot of different mentors who have had a lot of different concepts that have kind of all shaped the way that I see the markets. Smart money concepts is one of the concepts that I use. So I will give credit to the creator of that because they've definitely helped me out a lot. So last thing with US30, again, Daniel, I will try not to give all the sauce away for free. But this is the for Dow Jones, right? So very similar, right? So if we're looking at the weekly time frame, again, last week, what we wanted to see here is price trade to these lows, right? So we had a couple of things: a fair value gap here, sell side liquidity that I thought price was going to trade these relative equal lows. And so ultimately, I wanted to see price trade take out these lows. Again, just like every other pair, we did not get that. And so this could be the start of a new quarterly objective, or it could be a pullback. Now, when we're looking at Dow Jones, there's something very, very cool here. So we've been seeing this buildup of liquidity here just outside of this fair value gap. We've tested it once or twice. We haven't really dug deep into it. And so I think there's an opportunity here, a lot of imbalance in this zone that I think price will trade back into. Um, Again, build up of liquidity. And if we look at the daily time frame, this fair value gap is actually adjusted. So we haven't really touched the zone. So what I'd like to see coming into this is very similar to everything else, right? I want to see price pull back to this area and then take things a little bit higher, right? And so again, the 4 hour time frame, I want to see price come to our level at 33,941 and then attack this fair value gap here. And so that I'll keep things short and sweet. You know, Daniel, I won't give away all the sauce. But again, I'm looking for price to enter this range. Now, once we get here, you know, we kind of have to take a step back and ask ourselves, hey, are we gonna continue this uptrend up, or is this kind of the range that the market was pulling back to? And you know, with that in mind, having this fair value gap that we haven't really dug into kind of lets us know that you know this could potentially just be a pullback to continue to fall over to the downside where a lot of those targets will get hit that we called out before. So that's what I'm doing this week. I'm just pretty much watching the markets to see if we get a better understanding of where things are moving, where things are going. um, you know, last week did have the opportunity to take a couple of trades on NASDAQ, um, on the pullback that I had mentioned out going, you know, the past week, but ultimately, obviously, we didn't reverse, so I didn't get a chance to take setups on the potential reverse. But you can't trade both sides of the range, right? And so, did have the opportunity to take some good wins on that. But yeah, so that's overall. Let me go back to the comment section and see if there's any comments. Dang, that's funny, man. Yeah, and I think that's everything. Uh, Again, shout out to Trading Nut Podcast for giving me the platform to break everything down. And if you guys want to follow me at Brinks Trades, BRINX, um, BRINX trades. I'm not gonna take you guys to my page, but I will just put the shout out here, the ad here. Brinks Trades. You can follow me on Instagram or YouTube. You'll start to see that too. I'll start be making a lot of videos and future videos. Hopefully, these review videos will be kind of like also posted to my page as well. But you know, that's what I want to see on all the markets this week. Again, dollar short term bearish on dollar, just to get a better understanding of where we're at with prices, and then long term. We're waiting to see what the long term trend looks like, but short term opportunities bearish on dollar, bullish on indices, and then we'll see if this is something that continues to a bigger term trend or if it's something that is just for now. So want to thank everybody for coming on again. I want to apologize for technical difficulties. I'm still getting used to this platform, you know, so there was little things on my end that I didn't realize weren't running. And so but yeah, we're just rocking and rolling. And so hopefully this is something that you guys got a lot of value on. If it is, you know, again, like this, thumbs up, all the YouTube stuff, you know, right? And appreciate the time and have a good rest of the day.